What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Childbirth Redeemed podcast. I am so excited to share my guest with you today. This is my midwife, Erika Lampkin-Piagetti, and she is just such a blessing to me in so many ways, more than just being my midwife. And I really wanted to have her on here just to share with you guys about what she does and how God has really called her into this and how this is something that is available for so many women that they maybe don't know. So
Thank you.
Go
Thank
ahead
you
and
so
share a
much
little
for
bit about
having me
yourself, of
here.
course.
Thank you so much, Jade. So I am Erika Lampkin-Piagetti, and I've been a midwife for over 25 years now. I've delivered hundreds, if not 1,000 babies in all those years. I am the founder and senior midwife of Agape Birth in Palm Beach County, and I am just dedicated to educating women and being a light in what has been traditionally a spiritually dark place when it comes to birth. So thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to be able to share.
Of course. And that's so awesome because I know that really what was on my heart when I first started looking for a midwife was to find somebody that was a Christian and would be able to encourage me, not just in my ability to give birth, but also spiritually. It was so God. The way that I found you and just
Absolutely.
how the story has come to this point is just so amazing. But yeah, so I had a couple questions that I just wanted to go over. So my first one was kind of just, could you share like what kind of inspired you to, there's the OBGYN route and there's the midwife route. So what kind of was your process to becoming a midwife?
So it was kind of like a roundabout journey because where I grew up in New York, midwifery or having childbirth at home, especially when I was a teenager going into college, that wasn't very popular. As a matter of fact, I think it still is not a very popular avenue. A lot of, certified nurse midwives and, hospital-based birth centers exist. But at that point, I thought that the only way to really walk into that calling that I know that God had for me when it came to supporting the childbearing woman was becoming a nurse and working in the hospital in labor and delivery. And the reality is when I started to really research what that meant, I went to college. I thought nursing school was going to be the avenue, and I applied. With the application came the requirement that I had to do volunteer hours at the hospital, and so I chose labor and delivery. And when I went into labor and delivery, the first time that I volunteered, I was basically thrown into a room with a woman that was crowning and in the process of having her baby, and I didn't know what was going on. Like I literally walked out of the elevator, thrown into this room, and the nurses were like, tell her not to push because we need to get the doctor. So I'm looking at this lady and I'm 17, barely, in college, and I started to panic and tell her not to push. And she was by herself, didn't have any family, didn't speak the language. They asked me to tell her not to push in Spanish. And so I was just shocked. And I said, well, God, this cannot be the way you have a baby, because it was just so cold and she was isolated and unsupported. And then baby's coming out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with it. And then the doctor just comes in half dressed, like one glove, and catches it and then takes it, does whatever he did with her, took the baby away, and she's just literally laying there with a blank stare on her face, looking at the ceiling without her baby. And I was just like, okay, there's got to be a different way. And so at that point, I started looking at alternative ways of birthing.
Yeah.
And so needless to say, it did not take me the nurse route. Within that tenure of volunteering hours that I needed for nursing school, I saw a lot of things that I quickly understood with my limited knowledge that was just not what you do, one, to women, and two, to a birthing woman. So I graduated college with a degree in biology, psychology, and sociology because I didn't want to miss any credits.
Yeah.
And then I started looking for schools that could teach me the art of midwifery, not necessarily just delivering babies.
Got you. So it really stemmed from like you seeing, because I know for some people, I've always thought like, oh, well, if you're going into like to be an OBGYN, it's like, then you realize like, oh, there are some things. But for you, it was really just seeing the support that was being offered to these women
which wasn't any.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, birth trauma just on the provider end, not necessarily my birth trauma, but witnessing birth violence. And I would say in some cases it was very, very harsh.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can only imagine. I've had the amazing ability that I've never had to go into a hospital for anything related to birth. And so it's amazing that you were able to take that and see like what you could do with it to make it better. So that's so amazing. When you decided to become a midwife, like what were some of the things that kind of maybe tell us about that process? Because you said you started looking for how you could, like what is the avenue that you took? Because I know you're a CPM, right? Is what that's called?
Yes. So in Florida, the way you become a midwife in Florida is through a certified midwifery school, which allows you to get licensed. So I'm an LM, licensed midwife in Florida. And what that looks like is basically 3 years, an associate's degree in Florida. However, because I did have my bachelor's, I was able to complete it in the 2 years of just like practical midwifery. You have to have 150 births at the time. Now things have changed, as far as school. I'm talking about a quarter of a century ago.
Yeah, right.
So at that point, you sit for boards and you pass and you get licensed as a midwife in Florida. But the requirements for midwifery in Florida are so good, in my opinion, that it allows me to be relevant in other states. So as far as the certified professional midwifery, CPM, it was almost by default that I was able to become that in various states.
Got you.
With my Florida license.
Okay. That's awesome. because there's CNM, there's LM, there's a bunch of different terms, but I guess another question would be like, do you feel like there's like a big difference in like the way that like a CNM, which would be like a nurse midwife, right, would like view it versus a LM or a CPM?
I think historically there was a lot of difference, although some of the differences are being blurred now because of the popularity of having a more natural birth. That I think hospitals and hospital administration teams are now trying to bridge the gap. But historically, CNMs were exactly that, nurse midwives that needed to work under a doctor, needed to work within the hospital setting and be required to follow hospital protocol. Whereas licensed midwives are independent practitioners. We deliver mostly outside of the hospital, whether it is a birth center or your home. And we incorporate things that are more holistic. So whereas there is the ability with a certified nurse midwife to have, let's say, an epidural because you're in the hospital setting, following hospital protocol, at home, alternative methods of pain relief or of comfort and support are available.
And then obviously, like you just said, like there's this boom, I feel like recently, of people that are desiring to have natural birth. And I've realized like through, just like the books that I've read and the things that I've watched that really just women are so scared. They think that going to the hospital and getting the epidural is their only option to evade or like stay away from the pain and the trauma. And I guess like my question for you would be, because when you're a home birth midwife, you really are like showing them how they can have this beautiful natural birth at home. And so for you, like what are the things that maybe you've learned throughout the years or have seen that have really like made you come to that conclusion that supporting natural birth like really is the best thing for women who are able to have that experience?
Okay, so, well, first of all, anything perfected by God works and works best without human intervention as much as possible. So God created the woman, God created her body, God created the process of childbirth. And so I think it is just giving honor and glory where it's supposed to be, that allows such a natural process to be fulfilling and, for lack of a better term, successful. But I believe that as a society and as our culture really dishonors the woman by placing this fear around childbirth. We are not victims. We are not sick. We have babies. We're created to have babies. And like it is implied when we talk about being in labor, it is work, but nothing beautiful and worth, there isn't any blessing without effort. So I feel like if we were to be able to change that mentality where I can do this, it is hard work, but the reward at the end makes it worth it. I feel like we will have a generation that looks at birth as a challenge and as something that can be fulfilling, empowering, and not to run away from. So I feel like we just need to change how we approach it. And,
For sure.
And I think it starts with home birth, or not necessarily home birth, but just providers that really look at the woman as a person, not just a patient. Once we have providers that can support the woman, that can encourage her, then she'll have a good birth experience. And I'm not saying the only good birth experience is home birth.
Right.
As a midwife for so long, if it means a necessary C-section, then praise God, that's what needed to happen.
Yeah.
If it was something else, then as long as it is not demanded on the woman, but it is her body and her situation led, I think it will equal a successful birth. And once she comes out of that experience feeling empowered, then what she passes on to those around her and even to her, the next generation, is something more positive.
No, for sure. For sure. And like, I know that as I've been on this journey becoming an educator, a childbirth educator, I have realized like we're in this place where women feel like part of the problem is that they just feel like they don't know. And like you said, like birth has been surrounded by this fear and only the people in the hospital know the best things to do. And so it's like part of the process really is like with changing the mentality, like realizing how God created the process in general to work and to be successful in most cases. And then from there, like you said, it's like per case, right? Because, things can happen and emergency C-sections are needed, and praise God we live in a world where we have that option.
Absolutely.
And so, but really it's almost like about honoring the body first, like honoring her experience before like what you would think is easier or like what a doctor would think is easier.
It's not a standard set of events that have to happen. On the contrary, as I grow in my midwifery, because I've been a midwife for so long, but I actively, tell myself I don't know it all, and I want to approach every birth as a receiver, learning how I can apply what is being presented to other experiences. So, when I'm constantly learning and I'm seeing what is happening, then I know that I can use that and be able to kind of sow the benefit in other women.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so inspiring. And I know it just really is, like I said, like I don't know because I've never really gone to a hospital, like met with an OB, but I feel like even like in our midwife appointments, it's like I just appreciate so much the seeing me as a person and like seeing my experience as being valuable and not just like, oh, like I've delivered 1 million babies and I'm just going to do it the way that I've done it for forever. And so that's just really like such a comfort. And I know that for me, like it's so crazy, but you think about it, a lot of people like home birth is almost or even like out of hospital birth, like even if it's like birth center birth or whatever, it's just so unnormal that it's like people don't even realize how beautiful it can be. And then it's like you meet the people who like have it in common with you. Midwives they're just so much more caring and they really like treat you as a person.
Yeah, just on a little personal level too. I'm not only a midwife, but I'm also a mom of 7. And I've had births in almost every scenario. But the one thing that I would, and I encourage, especially my new moms, is that yes, it's hard work, but yes, you can get through it. And that moment, and I don't know if you can relate, but that moment when your baby emerges and you're looking at it and you're putting it on your chest, and it's just like, I don't know, that moment, that fraction in time is such a powerful experience that I don't think if it was easier, it would be as beautiful. I think if labor was just like, oh, I sneezed my baby out. Like, no, no, that moment is just such a, like, I would always say, I will go through birth a million times just to have that one moment with my new baby. Just makes everything worth it.
And I mean, there's even a scripture that says that, you know, where he's saying like when she sees her baby being born, like she forgets like
all of it
for just the joy that this was brought into the world. And I know, like, same thing. It's just with, I remember when Selah came out, I was like, oh my gosh, I just did that. I feel like I could climb a mountain. I could run a marathon. Like, it's just, it's such an amazing, it's such an amazing high, like oxytocin high that God, like, just designed to be that way.
It's divine.
And it's so amazing. My next question would be, what are some things about like the care that you offer, or like that you really know are so different from like what women are normally offered, that midwifery care gives like space for, like you're saying, like, you know, treating them as a person. And even like, I know I've heard, for example, like that appointments with an OB can be very like short and they're very just brisk and whatever. But I know that I've never really felt like all of our meetings have been very like nice, and I've learned a lot and been able to just like share like, you know, symptoms and things like that. So for women who are just kind of just have no idea what to expect from like seeing a midwife and like making that decision to not go the traditional hospital route, what are like some things to encourage them with, or things for them to know that are important?
Yeah, so midwifery care is definitely a lot different than OB care, in the sense that you are treated as a person. Your appointments are not 10 minutes and rushed. The conversations that you have are more education and a dialogue, and not necessarily just information thrown at you that you have to accept. So there's that aspect of your care, although mostly everything that you would come to expect as far as medical care is equivalent. So you're not sacrificing good health care for the emotional support of it.
Right.
That's very important to know. But also, as far as midwifery, personally, and I will say this in every consultation with new clients, is that I know that birth-related emergencies are kind of at the forefront of the questions: is an out-of-hospital birth safe?
Yeah.
And my response is always, because in my personal experience, between 90 to 95% of all birth-related emergencies stem from something that was either overlooked or disregarded in the prenatal period, is the reason why I take my time. I get to know my mom. I get to know her situation in life. I get to know how she eats. I get to know what supplements she takes, what keeps her up at night. You know, all the things that can matter at some point when it is critical, which is when, you know, everything's happening towards the end, really stems from that conversation in the prenatal. So that is, that's why I review diet all the time. We talk about any elevation in blood pressure. Is it something that we should consider as maybe something that's giving us clues to something that will impact down the line? So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's really good. And I mean, that is so true that you don't really think about it, but those 9 months before you give birth really affect you greatly, like how you're eating, how you're emotionally like handling stress, and like all of those things.
Your hemoglobin level, you know, I mean, a lot of women that go into the birth part of pregnancy with low iron have a higher risk of hemorrhaging. So if you want to not have a lot of blood loss, then really focus on diet and how she supplements and how she takes care of her blood levels. So that happens before, not at the time.
Right. That's really good. And I guess like, because I would say of the people that I have talked to, especially like when I share, that I'm having a home birth, one of the biggest things is like, oh, well, like so many people end up having to have these like emergency situations. And so like in your experience, would you say, because I mean, I feel like honestly, it really maybe isn't like so like you're not seeing like all of these women have these emergency experience and having to have all these transfers and everything. Like birth works when you let it happen naturally for the most part. And so like, what would you say maybe like some misconceptions or things that people don't really understand about that aspect of being a midwife and like seeing all of these births and having like the few that do require transfer, but it's not like a crazy amount?
So that's a kind of a loaded question because there are a lot of different ways and things that can stem from that. So I'm going to kind of approach it in that way. For one thing, not every midwife is cut from the same cloth. So you really need to find a provider that is going to hear you, that's going to do the right thing. And there are laws in Florida and as a CPM also that keep us safe.
Yeah.
Home birth and out of hospital birth are not for every mom. It's for low risk mom. And so when you have a provider that's going to really focus on keeping it low risk, not blurring the boundaries, then you are within that safe zone. So that's important. Also, when you are taking your time and kind of analyzing every aspect of her prenatal and her pregnancy that can affect labor, when you're taking that time, then things don't come as a surprise. You're educating the parents to be able to be in that one best possible state of health and prepared for whatever deviation can potentially arise.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions also that I get asked a lot is, what are your stats? And that to me kind of irks me a little bit, but I know the heart behind the question. So I try not to discourage the parents that ask me that. But the reality is that every birth is different. Every mom is different. Every birth that one mom may have in the future is going to be different.
Yeah.
So what you want is a midwife that's not focused on, oh, I need to make sure that I only have a certain percentage going into the hospital or this transfer rate. You want a midwife that's going to focus on the ultimate goal, which is a healthy mom and a healthy baby. And that looks differently for every person. But the one thing that is across the board common for everybody is that you were given the time and the midwife put in the effort to get you to the best possible state of health at the time of your delivery. So that's that can look, there are some years where I have a lot of women that might have torn. There are some women that wanted more intervention or wanted to go to the hospital or there's nothing, you can't really predict that.
Yeah.
Because again, home birth and out of hospital birth is an option. It's not necessarily a decision that you make and you can't walk back from.
For sure.
So you can start there. You don't necessarily have to finish there. It is always available. Your choice is always available, no matter what, at what stage in the process you're in.
Yeah. Got you. That's really good. Yeah. So, I mean, and I just think that that's really comforting too, that I think like the goal is not like the goal is to just take care of you to the point and get you to the point where you can be confident and be at the best state possible.
Yes.
So that like, regardless of what happens, like you were prepared and you had everything that you needed. Yes. And being a midwife, like being able to support them in that way too. Because I don't know, I feel like, even like just like outside of birth, like a regular doctor, like doctors that offer their patients like medicines for things versus like not more natural doctors. They'll be like, okay, well, let's look at the diet and let's look at the things. Like it really is just like approaching like the whole person and what the body like is already doing and how you can, you know, through the supplements, through the prenatals you take, through the diet that you have, how that can really like help. And
Yeah. And remember, you know, hospitals are equipped with multiple floors of specialists that are accessible at any time for a certain situation.
Yeah.
So they have to kind of accommodate whatever walks in through the emergency room doors. Whereas when you are preparing a mom for her home birth, it is very individual, very personal, and although you know you're coming with knowledge, with equipment, equipped to handle situations, you're not going to be faced with anything and everything that's out there. So there is that level of safety that that you're at your best possible place, and you're not going to be faced with a bunch of real life emergencies.
For sure.
That you weren't aware of.
yeah, definitely, for sure. And so I guess my next question would be, you know, I know, and we've kind of talked about it, and I really love like your perspective on, you know, there's going to be work involved, but nothing like worth having is, you don't have to like work for a little bit, you know?
Exactly.
And I know that kind of just a lot of the fear around birth is just like, oh, it's going to be traumatic. It's going to be super painful. It's going to be like, oh, like I can't handle it. And like for you as a midwife, when you're like talking with your woman, like what are some, because I know that obviously maybe we could even talk about the things at home that you can do, because there is a lot that you can do to allow for your body to experience it and not have that traumatic pain that they're portraying, you know, in the movies where it's just like you're clenched up and all of this stuff. Like, so when it comes to, you know, pain management, like how do you approach that in labor and like prepare women for that?
Okay. Well, first of all, yes, I am a midwife, but I try to avoid being a one woman show. Okay,
Got you.
so birth is not just you, the birthing mom, and the midwife. It is a team effort, and part of your team is your support system, which can include your husband, you know, your mom, your best friend, whatever.
Yeah.
People that are going to be around you that really are your choice. That will, you know, talk to you, touch you in ways that are going to bring you comfort, support you in that time. It's a team effort. So whatever you can and whomever you can put around you to keep you focused and to keep you strong is vital.
Yeah.
Also, you know, I have an assistant so that my two hands will multiply into four hands at any given time. But also one of the things that I really recommend is a doula that is a trained professional in comforting the mom. Because yes, dads can do it. Yes, mothers or grandmothers at that point can do it. But somebody that is familiar with birth, that knows what the woman's body is going to be doing, or the cues that she gives innately, that either are warnings or are just indications that things are progressing well. It's very important to have somebody that can recognize that.
Yeah.
And still be there emotionally, because as a midwife, I kind of wear a few hats. And yes, being a labor support and an encourager like a doula is one of the hats that I wear, but there is a time in the labor process where that hat has to come off and the midwifery hat has to come on. And I don't want the mom to be so emotionally dependent on my support that I feel like I have to abandon that aspect of her to be able to focus on the more medical side.
Right.
So having a professional that does, you know, that can keep in that role is very important. So when you have the ability to eat, the ability to drink, walk around, lay in your own bed with your own sheets, when you have, you know, your children around you that either bring you comfort or knowing that the person in the other room has them and are keeping them safe, all of that brings brings comfort and empowerment to the mom, when you can lower the light so that you're not distracted, when the noises that you hear are not beeps or other people being, either loud or talking about, yesterday's dinner, and you're trying to focus on having a baby.
Right.
All of that is part of being able to get through this really, challenging time in all of its beauty and successfully.
No, and I know that for me, one of my biggest things that I recognize is that like support is so important. I don't even know, even like you were saying with the first birth you ever experienced, like that woman was alone in the hospital. And it's like, when you don't have people, like whether that is a doula, and I totally agree with you, like if you are somebody that, like for me, I had already kind of known all the things to expect and I kind of have like dualified myself in a way. But even like I can't even imagine like still having like the people there to like help me with the comfort measures and to do the certain things is like so important and helped me so much with my first birth, and for my second I know for sure. But I can definitely see how, because I know even like in COVID, for example, they started not really allowing anybody in the hospital, and
So
that
hard.
I can't imagine like how like alone it must, like you can feel, because there is that aspect of, and even for you, like have like being a midwife, like encouraging women to have that emotional support as well, and people who are able to help them with those comfort measures that work, but trying to like do it all on your own and like getting in your head really, like I know one of the things that a lot of doulas talk about is like the fear, tension, pain, like when you're scared and then you get tense up and then that's what causes the pain to just amplify even more.
A huge aspect of labor, which kind of, when you think about labor, you think about doing, you think about working hard. But the reality is that the working hard that you do in labor is the surrender.
Yeah.
When you can release, your body does the work. And so whether that is releasing tension or releasing fear or releasing worry or even releasing the control that you have over your own body in trust that what God has created is perfect and works, that will carry you through. I don't want to say painlessly, because pain is a very general term and can be defined by many people in many ways, but definitely in a way where you can overcome. So it is a lot of release, a lot of surrender. And that's why I feel as a midwife that believes in the Lord Jesus Christ, when you can release your body, we are as Christians kind of encouraged to release our worry and anxiety and cast it on him. But releasing your body is something very few people have the opportunity to do. But the woman in childbirth has to do exactly that. Like I said, as a Christian, when I was going through my own births, and as a midwife, and how I encourage my moms that also believe in the Lord, how I encourage them to release to Christ, there is something very powerful about that, where you know that it is not you, it is the power of God in you, allowing you to do that. And when you release that to God, there is nothing that you cannot do, right? You can do all things through Christ. Awesome. So it makes birth so beautiful and so sacred, which is, again, one of the reasons why I chose to pursue midwifery, was because of that holiness and that sacredness that I saw missing at the hospital. Or at least in my experience at the hospital. I don't want to, this is not hospital bashing, because I love my hospital providers, and I think that the new trend of bringing in more holistic practice is a beautiful thing, and I'm so thankful that that's happening. I do believe that that when you can give it all to Christ, you will see that that it takes a
No.
whole new meaning.
For sure. And it's like, I know we were kind of talking a little bit about it earlier, but really that spiritual aspect is so important. And I know, kind of just to share like a little bit with you guys as well, like when I first was pregnant, I really prayed that God would just give me somebody that was a Christian, that I could not just only, trust with my birth, but also like have that encouragement. And part of the story with us obviously was the birth center, and then you not working there anymore. But even in that, like God was still so faithful to like bring me to this point with you, and like it just goes to show like there is this spiritual like side of life and of like relationships with people, and even like going into your birth experience that's so important to not like put on the back burner and like really desire for yourself, like because birth is a sacred thing. It's a holy thing that God has created a woman's body to do, and he wants you not to just be supported in the natural ways, but also in the spiritual ways. And I know we were talking a little bit about it earlier, but I guess my next question to you would be like, when it comes to being like a Christian midwife, like what are the things that you have noticed in the birth world, because the birth world is very influenced by other religions, other ideas, and things maybe you've had to overcome or that you've just experienced that have been like, spiritually affected you and brought you to this point?
Mm-hmm. Well, historically, childbirth has been, or natural childbirth, and I can only speak for the last 25 years that I've been a midwife, has had a very mystical, very new agey kind of current, undercurrent. So being a pregnant mom, before, or at least outside of the faith-based world, you kind of feel like you have to give up the spiritual aspect to get the natural aspect of birth. And I, as a midwife, experienced the same exact thing. If I wanted a doula or I wanted a midwife, I needed to kind of put my faith on the back burner to be able to embrace the empowerment and the ability that I had in the natural aspect of childbirth to be able to birth my baby the way I was created to. And that is such a misfortune for the women of God, for the body of Christ. Something that is so divinely inspired, which is the embryo in your womb growing into a human being, with arms, legs, and all the parts that we have when we're born. That is such a God thing. That why do we remove God from the emerging of that new person? So I felt very called in my faith to bring that aspect to midwifery. In the Bible, it says to be bold for Christ. We are ambassadors. And when you typically think that, you're thinking, oh, the missionary or the church, or when you go out and evangelize. But you don't look at it in the everyday. And my everyday of midwifery really needed it. And so God was just very clear with me and said, I want to be the center of not only your life, but your practice, and every birth that I am in, I give to the Lord. I dedicate to God. So the verse that I know that in my own spiritual walk that says that the women will be saved through childbirth was something that I wrestled with God, because I know that childbirth does not save women. Salvation comes through faith in Jesus Christ. Although he was salvation that emerged as his human form, God in human form emerged from the womb of a woman. So yes, in a way, we are saved through the birth of the child. But being a midwife, not only witnessing, but also experiencing birth, I see personal aspect of that verse, because there is so much of a surrender, so much of a giving up of ourselves to have a baby, that it looks a lot like when we give our lives to be born again.
Yeah.
When we say, God, I want you more than myself, more than my old life.
Yeah.
Childbirth is like that. It's when you give yourself to God so that he can give you new life.
Yeah.
And there's always that one moment, and it's whether it's a C-section or whether it's, a birth center birth or a home birth or whatever kind of birth that you're experiencing, there is always a universal moment where the mom kind of gets to the end of herself and says, if it is to lose myself to bring forth life, then so be it. And what a picture of salvation if we give up ourselves to be clothed with the righteousness
Yeah.
of Christ. So
Wow, that's really good. That's a really, really good revelation. And in my own experience, like I really am trying to write a book on birth, like throughout scripture though. And so like all of the different places where, women experienced birth, all of the like significant things. Like I know one for me is like in the Hebrew midwives, like attending the women, and just like really God, I feel like through my study, what God has shown me is like these women were giving birth like so well, like that they were able to, have these babies in spite of what was like going on around them, and like being able to like, and that's just because God like designed it that way, and God designed like a woman's body to be able to go further than we've been told or think that it can, in order to bring these babies into the world. And like what a beautiful experience it can be, what an amazing experience it can be. I'm very, very grateful to the Lord for putting me in this place and having you as my midwife, because I see that it goes so much farther beyond, me being young and being like, oh, you know what? Like, I think I'm going to have a natural birth when I'm older. Like, it goes so much farther than that. Like, God wanted to do so much more. And
yeah, I look at my midwifery as a mission field. Part of my personal history is that I was a missionary in Brazil for almost 9 years. And I did do births overseas. So when I came back to the U.S., having lived basically a life of a missionary and centrally focused around telling people about the Lord, I struggled with how do you want me to do that here? And in my own quiet time with God, in the gifting that he gave me and the calling that is midwifery, it was almost like a no-brainer. It was like, well, Erika, I want you to do it in birth and with these women. And what a sensitive and very open time in a woman's life to receive just the love of Christ when you have the love of Christ growing in you. Yeah. So,
that's so good.
Yeah, so that was part of my own personal journey, is that it is vital to bring back God into the process that he originated.
Yeah. That's just what needs to happen, Exactly. Like when I think about because I think a lot of people, and even myself, like I can totally see myself if I weren't a Christian, just getting caught up in all of the research and the hospital is bad, the this is bad, the whatever. But it's like really the point is that God just wants us to realize how amazing and beautiful he's created birth to be. And, as midwives, as educators, as anybody who like is in that space, like that is like a big responsibility. And it's not like something I think people who, like you've said, like it's almost like we've mystified it. We've tried to like separate it, but it really can't be separated, because if God designed, like anything God designs, like he designs like for his glory. And so we should make sure that like we're carrying that weight of when we're speaking with women, when we're talking to them, we're not just like telling them this information for them to have a great birth experience, but because like the Lord wants to give them that experience and show them what he's designed them to do.
It's very easy, because birth and having your baby is such a powerful, life-changing experience. It is very easy to give anything but God the glory. So you can idolize the woman's body. And, oh, what a powerful mother goddess you can be, which is a term coined a lot in the natural birthing world.
Yeah.
And you can idolize even your provider. Oh, I can't do my birth without my midwife. Absolutely not. You can do your birth without your midwife if God so chooses. Not that it's recommended, but as far as your capability, when you start to take God out of it, you're giving the glory to something else.
Yeah.
And that's wrong, because God does it, he created it, and he's the one that gets you through it. Yeah. And it's interesting how no matter what religion you are, many women get to that point before the baby emerges and they just cry out, "Oh my God." So, it's
like the hidden thing everybody knows, but
thing that nobody wants to recognize, but it is always there. And that's the beauty of being a faith-based midwife, is that it's not about me, it's not even about you, but we are in unity in the spirit, knowing it's all about God. And there is a freedom in knowing that it is about God, because he's perfect and he's all powerful. So when things don't look perfect, you can trust the perfect God. When you feel at your weakest, you can trust the all-powerful God. And so that is the best part of what I do as a midwife, is giving God the glory and seeing what he does in all the women that I serve.
That's so amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with me and just agreeing to do this with me. I am just so excited that I'm literally going to be having a baby in like 10 weeks.
You're going to be experiencing this
holy
firsthand.
moly, this is going to be so awesome. But,
yeah,
and I just know like God has orchestrated this so beautifully. And I really just love that, being able to share that with people and like what you do. Like, I really do believe like there's just like, you said it perfectly. Like there's this fear around it that women, like if they just are like encouraged to step out of that bubble and to like look at it from the faith perspective, to look at it from the perspective that God created their body to do it. Like there's so much freedom. There's so much like healing that can even happen. And, even with my first birth, like I am just so blessed that it was like everything that I was believing for, like it was smooth. She came out perfectly. And it's like with this one, I'm like, okay, God, like this is a different situation. And like, but I'm like,
it's the same God.
But God, you're the same. And like, you have designed my body. Like, I'm not going to think like, oh, because I've done it before, like I'm good. But I'm also not going to think like, let all of this like anxious thoughts start coming in just because, people may say things, or, oh, I'm like doing it at home. Like I just know there are so many like opinions that women like face already being pregnant of how they're supposed to do it. And so just letting God really minister to you, no matter what situation you're in or what birth you're believing for, and knowing that there are providers that care in that way to facilitate you as a person and as a child of God.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of women need that. But thank you so much. And
thank you.
I think you shared that before, but your business is Agape Birth, right?
Yes.
So, you know,
how love gets delivered. It is
Amen.
Divine love.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So for people who are in West Palm Beach and want to get in contact with you, know a little bit more, like what do they have to do to contact you?
So on Instagram, I'm Erika the Midwife. I do have a website called agapebirths.com. And you can look me up on Facebook. All my information, including my number, is there. And I'd look forward to being able to talk and share more with everybody. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And then if you don't follow my page is Childbirth Redeemed. This is the Childbirth Redeemed podcast. And I would love to have more conversations in the future. I'm so excited for what God's going to do with this.
Absolutely.
But go ahead and like, comment, share, and we will see you guys later. Have a great day.